Bhagavad Gita 3.14. We are talking in the series in the chapter 3. In this series, Krishna is telling Arjun, well, he started by saying that Arjun actually started with Arjun questioning Krishna. What should I do? Leave everything, take sannyas and go? Or should I fight? I'm getting confused. And then Krishna replied that for most people, with immature levels of spirituality, it's better that we do our duties, we do karma yoga. So Krishna started by telling Arjun about karma yoga, but then he moved on and said that if you are not qualified even for karma yoga, then you can do karma kand. Karma kand means sacrificing or doing yagyas for the pleasure of the demigods and ultimately Bhagavan Vishnu or Krishna, so that your desires are fulfilled. So in Karma Kand, one is basically looking out for fulfilling his own desires, his or her own desires, but does realize his duty to acknowledge the presence of a higher authority. So we are talking in series of that Karma Kand, and now in the previous shloka, if you remember, we talked about the yoga of food, and therefore we need to ask ourselves, are we non-vegetarians? Are we vegetarians? No, we need to ask ourselves, are we prasaditarians? Because we saw in the last slok that unless we offer food to Krishna, we will be eating sin, because we are committing sin while we are preparing food, and particularly if we are doing it just for our own satisfaction, just to satisfy our own senses without offering it in sacrifice first to Krishna, then we will not be eating blessing, we will be eating sin. So here the continuation of the theme is taking place, where Krishna is explaining why it is like that. Why should food be offered first? Otherwise it can lead to karma bandhan, it can lead to bondage. And this shloka will make you think again, to question yourself. Vegetarian, many of us pride ourselves in saying I am a vegetarian, but even that's not enough. So best is to be a prasaditarian. Let's see how, but first let's say the prayers. Om Gyantimirandhasya Gyananjan Shalakaya Chakshuranmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavranda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. The magic mantra, the Maha Mantra for this age, keep chanting this. It's going to have a wonderful effect on our lives, on our bodies, on our minds, on our souls. It's a mantra that delivers the mind of all its stresses. It also awakens the soul. Alright, the shloka 3.14. What's Krishna saying here? Let us see. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavaha yagyad bhavati parjanyo yagyaha karma samudbhavaha. Now here Krishna is saying, let me just read out the translation by Srila Prabhupada. The translation is, all living bodies, bhutani means living bodies, living beings, subsist on food grains, that's true, which are produced from the rains. So literally speaking, the rains produce the grains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, which is sacrifice, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. So here we are talking of a flow of events. Let's see how this happens. There's a reason why I'm standing or sitting in front of the board today. So let's understand. Now here Krishna is explaining to Arjun that all living entities, which means Bhutani, are born of Anna, which means the bodies of living organisms are made up of food grains or Anna. So we come from Anna. Then he says, but where does Anna come from? Where do the grains come from? The grains come from the rains. Parjanya. The word Parjanya refers to the rains. Alright. Actually, I was just doing a check on the internet, and I found that even today 80% of the world area is cultivated in a rain fed manner. Means आज भी 80% area जो world का है, that depends on rainfall for being cultivated. Of course, we have many other methods for assured irrigation also, but still, even those sources like canals, etc., ultimately, where does the water come from? The water comes from the water reservoirs. And where does the water come in the water reservoirs? It comes ultimately from rains. So there is no other source of water for agriculture except for rains. So Krishna is explaining that here. So rains. Now, how do the rains come? Well, we have been taught the water cycle in our classes when we were studying in school, that the water cycle is because the water evaporates from the oceans, from the lakes, from the ponds, and then it goes up, and the clouds are formed, and then precipitation takes place, and therefore the rains. So what's a big deal about the rains? The rains come because of natural phenomena, but we talked about this earlier. We see the automation, but we don't see the hand behind the automation. Yes, these are natural phenomena, but even nature is being controlled by Krishna. So we talked about this, that it's wonderful to understand and believe, although we take all this for granted, it's all taking place, clouds are being formed, then rain is falling. But let's understand, is it easy to make a cloud? We can't make a cloud. It's a cloud, as Chaitanya Charandas Prabhu says, cloud is actually a floating water tank which is aircraft proof, which means even if an aircraft hits it, it will not break, it will continue carrying water. So this kind of technology we can't build, only God can build. So the rains ultimately come from. Now Krishna is telling us the reason behind the natural phenomena of the rains, that the rains are given to us actually by the demigods. As we discussed, the demigods are ministers in the government of Krishna. So they look after the different resources, the water resources, the rains, for instance, are looked after by the king of heavens, Indra. But if he is not happy, he will not give us the rains, right? But how is Indra made happy? By sacrifice, by yagya. We discussed this, that the yagyas, the system of yagya has been created by Krishna so that we can keep the demigods happy. We give them the due regard, the acknowledgement. They are happy, and then they give us the resources. So ultimately, the cause for the rains is the yagya that we do. So the rains come from yagya. So if we perform yagya, the demigods are happy and they provide us with the rains. Now yagya, where does the yagya come from? The yagya is born out of karma. Yagya karma samudbhava, which means the yagya actually comes from the karma. Now what does karma mean? Karma, the word karma is a very broad term. Karma can be used to denote actions, the reactions also, good karma, bad karma, everything, we generally say it's karma. But here, what is the meaning of karma? Karma here refers to the prescribed duties, the good karma, the right kind of karma which is given to us in the Shastras, in the Vedas. So, how do we find what is the karma for us? What is the right kind of duty for us? We will find it from the Shastras or the Vedas. So Vedas have been given to us by Krishna to explain what is the duty for us. Now what is the duty for us? What is the conception that we have in our mind? हमें क्या लगता है कि हम अपने परिवार का ख्याल रख रहे हैं, अपनी सोसाइटी का ख्याल रख रहे हैं, हम थोड़े ज़्यादा अल्ट्रुइस्टिक हैं या थोड़े फिलंथ्रोपिस्ट ज़्यादा हैं, तो हम अपने साथ साथ सोसाइटी के उन मेंबर्स का भी ख्याल रख लेते हैं जो थोड़े से कम फॉर्चुनेट है, दान दक्षिणा करते हैं, तो हम सोचते हैं हमारी ड्यूटी पूरी हो गई. बट एक्चुअली द वेदास टेल अस दैट द ड्यूटीज आर ऑफ टू टाइप्स. One duty is the duty of the body, the relationships of the bodies that we have. That means our family, our community, our society, our country. We have duties for them. But you see, the duties for the family are even fulfilled by the animals. The birds take such good care of their eggs. They feed their young ones. The animals also feed their young ones. So, what is so special about the humans? Humans also have just the duties towards their families, or they have some special duties? Actually, humans have been given more intelligence, and the reason for that is that humans have more consciousness and they are expected to do something more than the animals do. And what is that? That is that they must realize that every soul has an eternal occupational duty. एक धर्म है हर आत्मा का. किसके प्रति? जो शरीर के संबंधियों के प्रति धर्म है वो तो हम कर ही रहे हैं, अपनी फैमिली के लिए, अपनी कम्युनिटीज़ के लिए, अपनी सोसाइटी के लिए, अपने लिए, अपने शरीर के लिए. लेकिन हम एक्चुअली शरीर तो है ही नहीं, हम तो आत्मा है. तो शरीर के धर्म निभाते निभाते कभी हम यही भूल जाते हैं कि हम आत्मा हैं, और आत्मा का भी कोई धर्म है, क्योंकि आत्मा परमात्मा का अंश है. सोल इज़ द पार्ट ऑफ कृष्णा, एंड देयरफॉर द ड्यूटी ऑफ द सोल इज़ टू सैटिस्फाई कृष्णा, इज़ टू सर्व कृष्णा. सो वी आर रिमाइंडेड ऑफ दीज ड्यूटीज बाय द वेदास. Now this cycle is completed in the next shloka, which we will read next time. But just to complete them, the Vedas come from the breathing of Krishna. And when the living organisms, living beings, particularly humans, they study the Vedas, they come to know what the karma, and from karma they understand that they must do their prescribed duties and do some sacrifices or yagya. When they do their yagyas nicely, then the rains come. When the rains come, the food grains come. And when the food grain come, then all the living beings on this earth, on this Mother Earth, are satisfied. Now, in the title we are actually talking about the world food problem. The world food problem today is very severe. We know of certain countries like the developing countries, like in the African nations. We see the documentaries where people don't have enough to subsist. They don't have, they're so malnourished and they're really suffering, and we feel bad about it. And then we say, actually the world is suffering from hunger. Why? Because the production of food is low. So what does that mean? Why is that so? Now, the question that comes in mind here is that, is the population increasing so much that the earth cannot produce enough food for all of us? But answer, that apparently seems so. People seem to think that the world food problem is because the population is rising. But let me tell you something, and this is a corroborated fact, that in the previous times, in the previous yugas, for example, the population of Earth was much more, many times more than what population is today. But still, everyone was fed properly. Nobody suffered from hunger. So what's the reason? It said that Earth has enough for everyone's needs. So Mother Earth can provide for everyone, provided we understand our duties. Because the reason people are not getting food these days is not because enough food can't be produced by Mother Earth, because the reason being that we have forgotten our duties as a soul. And since the yagyas are not being performed, what's happening? That the rains are not coming at the right time. Somewhere there are floods, so they destroy the crops. Sometimes there is not enough rain, droughts, and therefore the crops do not flourish. So somehow or the other, it looks as if the food is not being produced adequately. But the reason for that is that we have forgotten to do our yagyas. That's the solution to the world problem, to do yagya. And as Srila Prabhupada points out, in the Kali Yuga, it's not possible for us to do the typical types of yagyas for the demigods. And he explains that demigods are none other than the limbs of Krishna. So rather than trying to satisfy each and every devata or demigod separately, there are 33 crores of them, by the way, so it's quite a task trying to satisfy them, all of them. So better is to satisfy Krishna, because he is the Prime Minister, he is the head of the government, and if he is satisfied, everyone else is satisfied. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, a wonderful, brilliant purport Srila Prabhupada gives here, that he first explains how the yagya is related to satisfaction of the yagya purush. Because who is the yagya purush? Yagya purush is Krishna or Vishnu. So if he's satisfied, then we get all the resources. Now, in the second part of the purport, he explains what are the benefits of eating prasad. When we offer food to Krishna, or when we offer it in yagya to Krishna, what happens? What exactly happens with the food, and how will it affect us? So the effects are multifold. We'll someday talk only about the glories of prasad. The prasad is glorious. Prasad means the mercy of Lord. So that remains not food any longer. It becomes the mercy of the Lord. And what does the mercy of the Lord, the edible type, do to us? It actually, first of all, it just destroys all the sins that we have done in the past, number one. Number two, it also takes care of all the contamination that may come in future. Just as we are surrounded by lots of germs, viruses all the time and keep getting infections, similarly the world, the material world, is rampant with lots of germs of bad qualities like lust, anger, greed, potential sins, etc. So हम सब तरफ, चारों तरफ इन सब चीज़ों से घिरे हुए हैं, negativities, lots of anarthas, and these are the viruses that can attack us at any time. So what do we do if we have to protect ourselves from the viruses and the germs around us? That we go for a vaccine. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining here that prasad is like a vaccine. It protects us from all the viruses around us. What viruses? The viruses of lust, anger, greed, sinful reactions. So prasad is a very, very effective immunization therapy. It makes us immune to all that. So not only does it destroy the sins from the past, it also immunizes us in such a way that we don't incur any sins in future. So it's a real strong measure so that we remain out of trouble and we remain happy here, and then later become liberated to go to our real home, the home of Krishna. And then Srila Prabhupada in last part, explains also that ultimately, if we think, what if the earth is not producing enough food? That's all right, because the science and technology is advancing so fast. We can produce grains in the not grains, but we can produce food in the factories. So that's all right. But there was a challenge we had, one of the previous sessions, that tell me of any food item that can be produced artificially without any natural base. And actually there is none. Just think about it. So Srila Prabhupada says whether it is we, whether it's the animals, whether they are non-vegetarians or they are vegetarians, whoever they are, they have to ultimately depend on the produce from the agricultural fields for food. Ultimately all the onus is on the fields. He says ultimately we have to depend on the production of the field and not on the production of big factories. And that is because of the rains from the sky. And how do the rains come? We just explained that it's a whole cycle, right? So the cycle, this is actually called the cycle of sacrifice, or the YAGYA cycle. And this is the real answer to the problems that humanity is facing these days. So it's difficult at times to see the connection because we are a little short-sighted. We think, how can rains be connected to demigods? I mean, this is so unscientific. But no, really. As we talked about it, nothing goes on by itself. There are controllers. There are mini controllers. There are, slightly bigger microcontrollers. There are mega controllers. And then there is a supreme controller who is Krishna. So we have to satisfy or acknowledge or respect Krishna, and by which we will be respecting all the demigods, and therefore they will be giving us all the resources that we need to live happily here. But जैसे हमने बात की थी कि कौन सा यज्ञ करें, कलयुग में यज्ञ करना तो बहुत ही मुश्किल है ना. So again Srila Prabhupada is making that point here कि for us the best type of yagya to do is the Sankirtan yagya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And that will take care of everything for us. Till next time, we will see the connection further. Till then,